Right now, you are living through the birth and rapid evolution of a new kind of intelligence, AI.
Rival tech luminaries who have already reshaped our world are in an arms race. Recent polls suggest 70 to 90% of all CEOs plan to invest heavily in AI behind them.
The numbers are staggering, amounting to hundreds of billions of dollars in the next few years. Governments and regulators are stepping in as well, setting the stage for a global paradigm shift.
But have you stopped to understand what AI really is? Are you prepared for a world where AI will impact your job, your health, your relationships, and maybe even the nature of your humanity?
I'm Charlie Stack.
I am Lax Srinivasan. We believe your success, our success, depends on us starting to have a different set of conversations about AI.
Join us as we get to know our new neighbor. Welcome to the machine. So today we have the opportunity to talk about a really important group that's driving the AI revolution that most people don't really think about. It's not Microsoft, it's not Google, and it's not some hot VC-backed startup. It's the open source community. You've probably heard of open source software. It's the code that gets developed in these globally distributed ad hoc communities that is publicly available for anybody to use. Open source AI is the same. Models that are developed collaboratively in research labs and in the public domain and freely available for anybody to use. And while tech companies continue to capitalize on AI advances, the reality is that the rapid development of the AI they deploy through their platforms was mostly open source. OpenAI, as the name would suggest, actually began as an open source not-for-profit, although it's moving in a different direction now, as we know. And Hadoop, the big data platform that brought the machine learning revolution into the public view, was an open source project led inside of Yahoo. If you think about it, it's a strange business arrangement that not that many people really understand. Today, we're going to unpack open source AI along with a whole bunch of other stuff that comes along with it, what it means for business interests, the public good, and the continued development of AI. The esteemed guest today is helping to shape the future of open source AI, Holly Peck. And in her previous role at Soul Machines, she was the driving force behind the creation and delivery of AI virtual characters for top tier brands in Hollywood. Not only oversaw the birth of embodied agents, basically virtual humans, but also has collaborated with Oscar-winning animation teams, and ensuring the seamless integration of those characters into movie productions. Her works bridge the gap between humans and machines by making AI interactions more intuitive, more empathetic, and more emotionally resonant. She's founded a not-for-profit that helps women excel in technology careers. She was even profiled in an 8-part documentary series narrated by Robert Downey Jr. of all people called The Age of AI. Today, Holly is working on a really exciting new venture in the open source AI space, and we're really lucky to have her here and help us unpack things. Holly, welcome to the machine. It's great to see you. Maybe before we dive in and hear about open source, tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of how you got to Byte, which is the venture that you're getting off the ground today.
Yes, bytes, like gigabytes, yeah, with a Z. So thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here, first and foremost. So I am a engineer and AI entrepreneur. I've been in the deep tech and robotic space and AI space for about 10 years. So even though it seems like a long time, every day feels like day zero, especially with just the rate of acceleration recently around AI research and robotics. As a TLDR, I started my career as an experimental research scientist working at a company called Kindred AI in the AGI research group, before AGI was a hashtag, and now it's kind of a popular topic. Kindred AI was a company basically deploying a massive UR3 robotic arm, leveraging reinforcement learning in warehouses to complete a fulfillment task. And so I was part of the team working on the cognitive architecture of that robot and helping kind of automate that fulfillment task as a quasi research scientist and also software engineer. Kindred AI eventually birthed another company called Sanctuary AI, which is kind of, if you're keeping track of the humanoid space, it's one of the 10 top humanoid robotics companies. And so I was invited by the founders of Sanctuary AI to join as employee number one, and kind of spun out from Kindred and eventually continued working on the software minds of these robots that we were fabricating in-house. And then eventually, after a few years, ran R&D go-to-market, trying to think about how to commercialize parts of a mind, and also thinking about how to effectively deploy humanoids in production to solve repetitive tasks. And so, it was in the robot lab, working at Sanctuary, where I first fell in love with the deliciously hard problem of commercializing research and turning research into results. And so even though kind of I found another opportunity at Soul Machines, again, kind of leading the charge on productizing virtual avatars for Hollywood clients in marketing contexts, et cetera, this need to build a better way to, bridge the gap between AI research and, solutions in market never left. And so I think that is now kind of the call and the mission of Bytez. So Bytez is effectively solving the problem of keeping up with, understanding, and using AI research. It's really, really hard right now, even as a researcher, especially as a researcher, and maybe even and more so as a layperson, to keep up with AI research. I mean, the rate of publishing papers is accelerated. It seems like there are 10 or hundreds of new models every week. And so we've built effectively a unified platform to help any AI builder, keep up with AI research papers, understand the outputs of research, which are usually models, through an intuitive UI and model sandbox. So you can play with models on the platform itself, and then deploy these models and build products and applications on top of open source models through our model inference API. So we have a platform, pay a monthly subscription to access AI research papers and AI models, and then we also have a model inference API for developers to build with as well.
Yeah, that's great background, Holly. So I mean, open source is a big movement these days, and then on top of that, AI. That's what is, take kind of your average kind of user, that researcher out there or AI builder, paint a picture of like day in their life, and what problem is this that you're trying to address?
Yeah, I mean, so we serve kind of two core people. We actually our organization and mission actually came out of the researcher community. So we were a community project out of a machine learning conference called NeurIPS. NeurIPS is a very big deal in the researcher community. And we effectively built kind of the alpha version of Bytez for researchers, for AI researchers. These are people who are writing, research papers, presenting these research papers at conferences, trying to, evaluate open source models, maybe on GitHub and in repositories on GitHub, or put on Hugging Face. And so the first alpha version of our platform was basically building an easy way to discover, search, and interact with research papers. So effectively, what we did was we took AI research PDFs, because typically, research papers are PDFs, and we made them interactive. So what we did was we basically parsed the PDF, vectorize it, stored it in a knowledge graph, and then turn that into basically plain text data that can be queried with an LLM, that could be interactive, And we effectively transform a research PDF into a Wikipedia-like experience of that research paper. So it becomes an interactive research desk linked to code, linked to the models that it talks about, referencing old, other papers in a really easy way. Having linking a recommendation, a paper recommendation on that paper as well. So kind of turning that transforming that paper experience into a different research experience to help researchers understand the paper and keep up with research. And so we basically released that, and the research community loved what we did, because reading research is really time consuming, and the rate of research papers being published is exploding. So
Holly, just to help make sure people are keeping up here, because there's a lot to digest. I think if you went out on the street and you asked people, what's AI, they would cite like a model, right?
Yeah. They'd probably say OpenAI,
GPT, whatever number they're using.
They'd probably say ChatGPT.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the reality about the world of machine learning and AI that there is a lot more to it than that. And if you think about how AI is impacting your life every day, whether it be, the new interaction that you had with some voice assistant in an Apple phone or a Google product, all the way through things that you don't even understand are happening to you because it's a tool being used by the marketing department of some company, or in an agentic fashion in a call center that you called up to get some help from. Like, AI is embedded into all this stuff. How many models are there actually out there, beyond ChatGPT, 1.0 or whatever it is that people know of?
I mean, there are, I think it's hard to quantify because not all models are useful. So right. You can be a model creator. You can create a model. You can fine tune a pre-trained model, for example, and throw it up, on GitHub or Hugging Face, and it's essentially a model. But is it useful? Maybe not, or maybe.
And GitHub and Hugging Face are like these. I would consider, based on what you've talked about, they're sort of like, precursors to what you've built, in that there are these other interfaces that help a developer or an engineer access the sort of chaotic world of both open and closed source capabilities that exist. Is that a fair way to think about it?
I think it's it's a fair way of putting it. I think we're, and look, I love GitHub. I use GitHub. I use Hugging Face, every single day. What we're trying to do at Bytez is really connect the research world to the developer world. Researchers usually create models, right? And they present about these models in research papers. Well, the researchers need developers to use their models. I mean, that's like these two kind of sides of the ecosystem have typically been siloed.
That's where a model comes to life.
That's where a model usually comes from research, right? Yeah. A really a state-of-the-art model or a foundation model or that usually comes from research. And developers now, especially now, are looking for specialized models or looking for models to solve real, business problems or to build with in products and applications. And so the researcher community and the developer community typically has been very siloed. And so we're trying to bridge that gap through a unified platform that literally links research to kind of models, or connects research to models.
So Holly, I see these posts out there, the researchers and developers. I'm just curious because I'm seeing posts that says, oh, we just deployed this big use case based on LLMs, and guess how many data scientists we had on our team? 0. Do you think, given everything going on with LLM and hallucinations and everything else, I'm glad you're bridging the two communities. The question is, do you think as a developer, if I don't have machine learning or AI background, how much do I need to know before I can use it?
That's a great question. And I think you're touching on a really interesting evolution on who is using AI to build with, like who's building with AI. I think, 10 years ago, the kind of person who was deploying models in production would probably have a master's degree or a PhD in maybe machine learning or data science. But because now the community and the broader ecosystem is used to interacting with models programmatically through an API call, now any developer, any software engineer who's worked with APIs can build with open source or proprietary models in their products using a single API call, or which is really interesting, right? And so I think now you don't necessarily need to. You're seeing software teams become AI teams, or engineering teams, software engineering teams become AI teams because these AI APIs exist. And so that's really interesting. I think the need for understanding how these models perform in production is not going away. And I think you touched on a risk of deploying text generation models in production, which is this hallucination, aspect, which is really hard to monitor in production. There are certain observability tools and such, but it remains a hard problem. But I think what we're seeing as well is, as these tools and APIs and platforms make building with AI more accessible, the builder of AI is becoming more novice. And so there are a bunch of interesting, second order downstream consequences of that.
Wait, and this is related though, Lex. Before we go down this rabbit hole, I want to just get to the framing here again. So, is the order of magnitude of usable models like productive models? Is it 10,000 of them? Is it 100,000 of them?
I would say that it really depends across tasks. Now, what we've done is we have 40,000 open source and proprietary models.
That's just what you already have.
We already have that.
And you're saying there's lots more out there.
Yeah. I think on Hugging Face has more than 1 million models on its platform now. Are all of those models usable or useful? Probably not. A lot of those models, I would say probably over 60, so maybe 60 to 80% of those models are fine-tuned versions of other pre-trained models. That means me as a model creator, maybe take OpenAI GPT-2, fine-tune it on some custom data set and throw it up there. Well, is a developer really going to take some random person's pre-trained, fine-tuned model and deploy it in production? Maybe not. But what we've done is we support 40,000 models across 33 machine learning tasks. So we don't just focus on text generation or chat. We have multimodal chat. We have feature extraction models. We have computer vision models, object detection models, all kinds of models for different tasks. So we're trying to support the whole gambit of machine learning tasks.
So Holly, continuing on Charlie's thought on framing, so it's almost like an analogy is kind of the app store, right? Where you have billions of apps, right? And there are billions of users that a lot of them are not programmers or developers. So are you seeing a world that, so you're trying to solve the research to results problem, as you said, the research community and the developer community are trying to act as a bridge. The question for me is, let's just say there's 40,000 you have curated, and there is like many more out there. And I'm sure now there are AI that can generate AI, right? I mean, it writes code. so you could just have limitless number of things out there. So do you think the problem that you're solving in the future, or where this is all going to head, is you have to give away to developers that are now increasingly more novice to be able to quickly discover models and maybe, kind of take it for a test drive and then compare multiple models. So just kind of paint a picture of where this world is headed and what problem, where are you positioning to solve yourselves?
That's a great segue into communicating the value of what we're building. So at the center of it all, we're trying to build a unified platform to help developers at nearly every part of the AI development cycle. So typically when you want to build with an AI model, maybe you have some vision of the product or application you're building, and you just don't know where to start. And so what we're trying to do is build a better way where a developer can come to Bytez and search through a repository of models what they want in natural language. Hey, I'm looking for describing kind of the problem or the business problem or either feature requirements for a model in natural language. And then what we've done, as well as having a platform, is we have an agent. We've developed our own agent that's grounded in every single AI research paper that we have in the platform, and also every single open source model that we have in our database. And that's how we're able to match, a user's feature requirements to a curated recommendation of the top models for that particular task. So this is really important because I think the number of, as we've seen in the research, when we first processed research papers and made them interactive and created this like archive of research papers, we realized, wow, the rate of research being published is accelerating. We're now processing between 400 and 2,000 AI research papers a day. That's crazy.
Wow. We have another episode on this.
Yes.
And one of the features of the AI world we live in is scientific discovery.
It's discovery. It's just accelerating.
Exploding.
It's exploding. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so we're also seeing the rate of models being released exploding. So now we're in this like Cambrian explosion of new research and new models. Well, we've made the bet that is not slowing down. In fact, that's going to grow exponentially. And if that's true, then you need an intelligent way to understand what models are right and appropriate for your business problem or the product that you're building, and an intelligent way to find basically the answer to what you're looking for in research papers. So really, we actually have a few products. One is a platform. And then two, which you can search for across 3 million AI research papers and 40,000 models and demo the models in our UI, which is really nice. And also there's API docs, so you can kind of build with models via our API. But we also have this agent, and the agent is really important because it kind of acts as a concierge to kind of helping people, find the answer in research papers, discover what they're looking for intelligently, and also, find and recommend the top models for their particular task. And this is a tool, this model matching tool we've built in. We've built in recently, and this need is really interesting. We've kind of come up with a term internally called model product fit, which I think is going to become increasingly more important as more models, and especially as smaller models get introduced, right? Because you're seeing another trend in open source AI where it doesn't really make sense to train foundational models anymore. It's really expensive. We don't need another massive reasoning model maybe. What we're seeing is the trend toward smaller, more specialized models for particular tasks, maybe models that can do, computer vision or NLP, tasks on the edge, right? And so those models are smaller, and we're just seeing an explosion of those as well. And we're supporting those as well through our API.
I have this image of the first time you walk into a library, Lax, when you're a little kid and you're like, oh my God, this is all the knowledge of the universe. Yeah. How do I ever possibly figure out how to digest this, right? And, over in traditional learning, we sort of built the Dewey Decimal System, and sort of, ways to go navigate that. The game's really changed because of agentic capabilities. Yeah. Now it's everybody can have their own personalized librarian.
Yeah.
to go in. You're like, hey, I'm interested in this, or I want to do this really specific thing that can help you find the perfect book.
Yes.
In that vast library of stuff. That sounds like what we're talking about here.
It's exactly correct. Yeah. And we actually, and that's solving the discovery problem, which is really critical for researchers, because, and developers as well. You know, the agent effectively helps you find what you're looking for in the context of research papers, and also find the appropriate models to help you build whatever you want to build. Another thing we recently released, because we've spent the past couple of years building a lot of the tech foundations for the platform, is we've also introduced the ability for anyone on our platform to create their own personalized AI feed. And that's really important because that allows you to keep up with AI in the context of new models being released and also new research being released. So what you can do, it's kind of like your own customized YouTube or For You page, but just for like the world of machine learning. So what's really cool is you can follow certain tasks in machine learning. So you can follow computer vision. Maybe you're really interested in large language models or knowledge graphs or vectorization or something. You can follow tasks and then all of a sudden get a curated experience of a page, kind of like a For You page that will share the trending papers, the trending models, SOTA papers, SOTA models, new papers being released that are available on platform for you to kind of listen to or interact with, and anything that's important happening in the world of machine learning, kind of as your own personalized kind of research desk. So that feed is another product that we've released, but really, it's a platform, right? That has a feed, it has an agent, it has kind of model sandboxes for you interact with and run inference on models across different tasks, and then of course an API. So it's really discover, understand, and use AI. That's kind of what we're.
Do the soda models come in a diet soda variety also? Because that's Lax's preference.
State of the art. I should use that.
I think that's fantastic. That kind of in the thing you just talked about, discover, build, and use.
Discover, demo, and deploy. Yeah.
Sorry, discover and?
Yeah, discover, demo, and deploy. Right. You need kind of three. There are three kind of components of the AI dev cycle.
So can you just? You have users using it today, your platform and various features. Can you give an example of in that life cycle you just laid out, those three stages? What would be an average kind of time saved? Like, what is the impact are you seeing? If they don't use your platform, what would they do versus using your platform? How does it accelerate? Like, what is, just dimensionalize that for us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we have kind of two core users. One is the researcher, the AI researcher, looking to keep up with AI and read research papers and understand what they should care about, what's breakthrough in their field. And so typically how they would do this is try to go and archive, try to understand, hey, what new research paper, I'm really interested in machine translation. I work in my research area is machine translation. I probably have built my own research pipeline to try to keep up with new papers that are released, every single day or every single week, just to keep up with, hey, should I be reading about this research paper? Are there new models being released? How do I even find out what's new? What am I missing? That process is really fragmented. Usually people have cobbled together their own research pipeline or built their own RSS feeds, and they're trying to go on archive and use keyword search to keep up. That process takes hours every single day. What we've done is we've streamlined that. All of a sudden you can use basically use our agent. You can search, you can come to your personalized feed to see, hey, are there any new papers that have been released in machine translation this week or today or the last hour? We've completely automated that. So I think in terms of time savings, hours a week at minimum saved for the researcher just keeping up with what's breakthrough.
And this has got implications before you move on to the other user, because I know I think we're going to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But this is really, I think this has far-reaching implications, and it's relevant to this open source topic because that's the world of open source AI, but there's also open source software
Yeah.
and how you navigate that. And if you think about open source, open source, the model for that is really just academic research in general, right? It's the creation of knowledge that anybody's free to read about and go use.
Yeah.
Software and AI models are interesting artifacts of what traditionally has just been like an open source knowledge, like a library you can go to learn anything that anybody's published, because they're actionable. They're slightly more actionable than just a economics paper that I wrote, right? Like there's a sort of functionality to them that you can copy paste and use. But so it's I don't know. As you talk about that, it's sort of, there's this broader challenge that we probably haven't recognized we've had, which is anybody trying to find out anything. It's hard.
It's really hard.
And Google's was probably the step one of how do I put all the knowledge of the universe on the internet, and now I can search it.
Yeah.
But now you're sort of amplifying that. You're making it, way more robust in terms of really aligning that connectivity to what's important to you right now.
Yeah, PDFs aren't indexable, right? So that's a huge innovation. And we built that pipeline, that's all automated, right? So when a paper is published on Archive or other journal, we parse it, we vectorize it, we store it in a knowledge graph. We have one of the largest knowledge graphs, machine learning concepts, out there. That plus an agent is really powerful, because all of a sudden you can use natural language to do really complex queries. You can say, hey, what are the top computer vision papers that were released at NeurIPS last year? Okay, that just saved me, that one query using natural language just saved me probably a week's worth or a couple hours worth of work understanding what's breakthrough. And so we've automated that completely for the researcher. And also what's really important is this interactive paper kind of experience is actually currently embedded in the top machine learning research conferences globally. So we hosted all of the AI research of NeurIPS last year, and also the year before, as also CVPR. We're supporting ICML, iClear. So we really have, we're really deeply connected into, state-of-the-art AI research, that side of the network. And it's really important that we started there, because, these are the people creating the state-of-the-art models that everyone else wants to deploy. So we started there. We made the experience of keeping up with discovering and understanding AI research easier for the researchers. And then we moved on to the developers. And so what's really interesting is once we created a better way of consuming research and making research interactive, and also linking, what's really interesting too is we have this related content side of kind of the paper, where if a research paper is being talked about online, let's say in Reddit or Reddit subreddit community, or on Stack Overflow or Hacker News, or there's a public or on YouTube, maybe the author is presenting the paper on YouTube, we link every single source on that paper. So all of a sudden you're seeing this really rich content experience of that paper in its entirety. So you get to read the paper, you get to use the LLM to ask questions about the paper. If the model exists, if a paper is talking about the model, there's a model sandbox right there. You can demo the model, right as you're reading the research paper, which is completely unique to our platform.
Yeah, so this is gets us into our second user.
This is the second user, right?
Yeah.
Everyone looking to build with open source models, right? Now this is the majority of the market. This is kind of how we typically get paid.
And this is like Lax's question also, because when you're asking about the sophistication level of somebody using these models, there's Lax, he's pretty deep. There's me, I'm about as shallow as it gets. But what's the vision for where this goes?
This is so in the same way we've created this automated pipeline, this engine to take a PDF, convert it to clean text data, and present it in a beautiful UI. We've also created this kind of factory turning repositories that contain the model into usable, buildable things. And what I mean by that is typically if a research paper mentions or introduces an open source model, what will happen is the authors will put the model in a GitHub repo. They'll put it on GitHub, or they'll put it on Hugging Face, and they'll link the Hugging Face URL or the GitHub URL to the paper. Now, that's great, but if you're trying to basically use the model, that's not really accessible via an API. Typically, or what you have to do is you have to find the model, like the GitHub repository. You have to, maybe download the model weights, spin it up in a collab, hope that all of the dependencies are still working. Because if there's any breaking updated package that model uses, the model will be unusable. You can't use it anymore. You can't even evaluate the model because it's broken. Because there's no maintenance to the model.
Just if you're me, I imagine like anytime I make like an update to my iPhone, this is a million times more complicated.
Yeah. So what we've done is when we make an open source model available via our API, we do a couple things. So we containerize the model, and that's really, really important because effectively what that does is it makes the model usable. We ensure that we can download all the model weights, all the dependencies required to run the model, and it's fully functional, and we containerize the model. And then we make it programmatically available via an API. That means that it's effectively a frozen version of the model, which will always run, which is really, really important because before you would have to, literally spend money on pay Google to, effectively, run that repo in a collab, download all the dependencies and then run an inference and do all these like coding in just to get the model to run. So we've made it really, really easy, programmatically available. And we also basically benchmark the model, and we denote the RAM required to run the model. And what we do on the back end is we effectively denote the VRAM required to run the model, and we fit that model into the smallest virtual machine required to run an inference. So that means that you're not using a really small model, and we're not fitting it on an A100, which would cost a ton. We're actually fitting it on the most optimized effectively optimized machine to run that model.
You're going to make sure I don't take the fighter jet to the grocery store. You're going to make sure that I'm driving.
So that makes our the cost of running inference really cheap. Effectively, at the end of the day, we're trying to make it really like in layman's terms, we're trying to make it really easy to build with open source models by using a standard API, standard schema, standard input schema, and also make it really cheap. And we've effectively created this.
So I come in on the front end and I say, hey, I want to generate, this is a query Charlie would have. I want to generate a flyer for my dad band's rock concert this weekend. And so I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna have a librarian, layman's terms, agent that's gonna help me figure out, hey, here are 5 models that would probably be good at generating a dad band flyer for you. And then I can actually test each one of them in real time on the platform.
And what we're doing as well is we're introducing task-based playgrounds, so you can compare the outputs of models side by side. So all of a sudden it's helping you discover, helping you evaluate, helping you compare models, not just open source models, but closed source models as well, because we support, our platform supports, it also allows you to compare closed source models and open source models, and then deploy them very easily through a standard API. And the reason why the standard API is important is a lot of these models don't have a consistent schema. So they have different parameters. So the Google, for example, Gemini models take a different input schema than OpenAI models and DeepSeek models and other, maybe LLMs or text generation models. And so we've abstracted that. We've standardized the input, so you don't have to worry about, hey, what are the parameters for this model? What's the input? What's the input definition? How do I run an inference? We've made that super easy by creating a standard protocol for interacting with these models. So you can just focus on evaluating, comparing, and deploying what you want to deploy.
And Holly, I mean, I think it's not only kind of the saving time, but I also think what this allows somebody to do, whether you're a startup or a big company, I think you're also making it kind of almost like an insurance against not missing something big. You're not going and building a product off of an old model. You could actually come in and see what is out there in one place, right? You're also, to some extent, making sure whatever's out there, you can see it. The question I would have is, just having this platform out, people using it, what would you say are the top misconceptions an average AI builder has about this kind of whole thing, whether it's open source or AI models? Let's take the novice AI builder. What do they think? Kind of like, what are the myths out there that we could help them bust right now?
Yeah, I think up until now, open source AI historically, there's still a high barrier to building, right? Because of the problem of, there are too many open source models. I don't know which one I should use. I mean, even, we support over 10,000 text generation models on our platform. Yeah. So, I mean, as a developer, you kind of get lost immediately. I mean, you feel like this anxiety, how do I know which one is right for me? Help me make an intelligent decision there's just too many to sift through, right? So I think, and it's too hard to even make the evaluations or make the comparisons of, one text generation model to the next. I think there's still a misconception that building with open source AI is hard. We're seeing the market shift a little bit, especially with the launch of DeepSeek. Now we're seeing open source AI models outperform proprietary models. So that's been a really interesting trend in the market. And now I think people are turned on and open to the opportunity, or even interested in, hey, maybe I should care about this thing called open source AI. I shouldn't just, blindly, go with a model from a closed source provider, right? They're kind of opening the hand of thought to experimenting with open source AI as a viable alternative to closed source models. So I think that's really interesting. Also, I think this whole thing around model risk is going to become really important. So, hey, how do I know, the thing I'm deploying in production is working as intended? How is this model trained? Is there any internal bias in this model? I think, that's really the movement toward open source AI, because, open source models, you understand the training regimes. You understand, that you can inspect the model weights. There's no black box, around the model architecture itself. So you understand that, there's this transparency and reliability to it that is obviously an advantage over closed source models.
It's an interesting point. If I'm in a corporate setting and I'm using OpenAI as a partner,
yeah.
I guess on the one hand, I have the sense of security that comes with, well, this is a reputable. I think this is probably traditionally how people feel. Well, I used OpenAI. I can't make a bad decision here because they're the sort of AI provider of record. Mm-hmm. Your point would be that, to the contrary, actually, what's difficult about that is that there's only a certain extent to which you can really even inspect what their model is.
You only inspect the output. You don't understand the mapping function, right? Given an input, how is this transformed to the output, right? But with open source AI, you understand that, right? Everything is in plain sight. So that's that movement toward transparency. observability is really critical, especially in highly regulated industries, right? Where these systems are maybe making product recommendations that can influence the livelihood of certain people. I mean, that's critical, right? So I don't think I think everyone now sees and is awoken to the obvious advantages of open source AI, right? It's furthering acceleration, it's furthering, innovation. You have a community that's, building on top of other models, which is great. One of the beauties of open source is you can take a pre-trained model and fine tune it on your own data set and make it really specialized and performant on a certain task, and then all of a sudden that's a gift back to the community, right? You get this building on top of each other that's really virtuous and actually accelerates progress. So that's really great, and also you get all the other bits, which are transparency and reliability and all that stuff. So
and Holly, so maybe kind of wrapping up a little bit, the AI builder, AI researcher, I think the value is clear, right? You're saving time, you're making all the things they needed to go from research to results faster.
Yes.
So if I am the CTO of a company, CIO of a company, or even CEO, Charlie and I just spoke to one that's all in on AI, what do they need to know about this whole topic? Your platform, product, but just writ large about what you're doing. Why should they? Is it? Do they need to think about this, or do they let the AI developers deal with it?
I think every company now, if they want to have sustained moat, needs an AI strategy. And if you have an AI strategy, you need to account for how you're going to monitor what is state of the art in the ecosystem continuously, and how you're going to intelligently and in a scientific way make decisions about how you deploy models in production. And you can do that in a way that's really inefficient. It takes a lot of time, or you can do that through a unified platform like Bytez that allows you to evaluate models very quickly, compare models side by side programmatically, and deploy them very easily in production, and also give you certainty that you're always using the best model in production, because what we've done is we're always benchmarking new models that come out. We ingest research papers every single day, and also new models as they become available. So, we'll basically notify you if there is a better, cheaper, more performant model for that particular task that is worth evaluating or comparing. So it's this thing about certainty. It's this thing about foresight that we help our customers with that you just can't get anywhere else. And I think right now, traditionally, the process of model selection and model deployment hasn't really been a science. It's more of like an art, I think. But now it's critical to understand why you deploy certain models into production. This whole this idea of model risk, right? And so our platform helps CXOs and CTOs do that in an easy way and a cheap way as well.
How soon do you think this is relevant? Let's take it out of a corporate context to all of us as individuals. I mean, I often think about how very many tasks or activities there are in my own life. Let's take a very almost trivial example. I am terrible at remembering people's birthdays. I wish I was more thoughtful, and I wish that I had some reminder that would intervene at the right time in my day with maybe some suggestions about what would be a thoughtful gift to give a person that's important to me in my life for their birthday. Yeah. The reality is I don't execute on those because I have too many other things going on, and by the time I remember, I'm running to get a bottle of wine on my way to the birthday party, or something that's just like very simple. And the reality of living a digital life is that I produce a data signal about my friends and my family and information about them that I might want to have access to a model that I could say train to remind me and intervene with suggestions for a present for that certain someone, maybe even help me think about which people are important. So I think even out of a corporate context, sometimes it's helpful to just personalize this stuff.
Yeah.
Like think about me as a non-tech, not a developer. I tried being a developer, I was terrible at it. That's why I'm a recruiter. I'm certainly not a data scientist. I took number theory and decided that I was done with math. Like, what, is there a near-in future where this is kind of, the bridge to accessing all this is here for all of us? What does that path look like?
Yeah, I mean, we built Bytez for the AI builder of the future who doesn't have a traditional machine learning background. Even though we started with the researcher, right, making research better and easier for them, the future of who is building with AI is changing. It is your sister who's a marketer. It's, maybe a librarian working at a library. But that's who we built Bytez for. And so everything about the platform, is designed in that way, where you can come to Bytez and interact with a model through a sandbox and enter a prompt and see an image generated, on the fly. I think what's really interesting is, we're seeing now, AI models become embedded in products and applications. I think that's not going away. I think, I think what's really interesting is, there's a huge opportunity in not only intelligence in the digital world, but intelligence in the physical world as well. So you're seeing kind of the rise of, smart warehouses, ghost factories, robotics. And that is only possible through the emergence and development of other kinds of AI that isn't just text generation models or isn't just a chatbot or an LLM. Those are like computer vision models and and so we're seeing I think the emergence of that is going to be very interesting as well. But of course, the great thing about us is we support and we make it easy for developers looking to play with any AI model for any application. Well, we support 33 machine learning tasks. So we don't just stop at chat models. We extend beyond that.
That's great. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think clearly something that's going to be needed as the number of models proliferate. As you said, the AI is everywhere.
AI is everywhere.
I think that's a good closing line, Lax. Thank you. Thank you, Holly, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Welcome to the Machine.
To join the conversation, visit us on welcometothemachine-ai.com.
Special thanks to Spencer Stewart, the Return on AI Institute, and our fantastic production team, Trey, Jojo, and John, for helping bring WTTM to life.
Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.
See you next time.